privy to. I talked to members of the intelligence community. They offered what they knew. I asked questions, and as a result of that dialogue, I concluded that the case for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was not a strong one. And because it wasn't a strong one, I could not, in good conscience, vote to send my neighbor's son or daughter into harm's way to defend our national interests when our national interests were not threatened. And so I guess before we do anything, we'll clear the decks with regard to intelligence. And obviously we can talk more about intelligence and the nature of it, but the intelligence did not fail me. I was not failed by the intelligence community. I concluded that there was not a strong case for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq because of what I learned from the intelligence community.
And now, pardon me, maybe it's not a good time to start.
Perfect time.
It's okay?
Perfect.
All right. With respect to that, was there some kind of limitation on your capacity or your opportunity to share the intelligence that you had garnered as a committee member with your peers in Congress, in the House? Were there things you could not discuss in defense of your no vote against the resolution?
There is virtually nothing that a regular member of the House cannot have privy to, with regard to his regular execution of his duties, of my duties. Now, if you serve on the Intelligence Committee, the Select Committee on Intelligence in the House, there are certain locations that you cannot discuss information with your colleagues. There are secure locations within the Capitol complex and off the Capitol complex whereby members of Congress can learn whatever it is they need to know to do their job. Classified evidence at the highest level. But to answer your question, Jim, it's an excellent question. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee and not a member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, there's not really anything or anywhere I could not discuss with my colleagues once I had learned it. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't know anything that I didn't know to answer, and I didn't know anything.
And there was never any attempt made in any way to prevent you from sharing your findings with your colleagues?
No, not at all. And in my book, I talk about some of the settings for those briefings, and you know, there were in some cases over 100 members of the House in a committee hearing room listening from representatives of the intelligence community, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the State Department Intelligence Services. There were all of these briefings and some hearings where we could hear directly from them. We could ask them questions, and our colleagues could hear the questions that we were asking. I could hear the questions that they were asking. I could hear the responses from obviously my questions and their questions. And so there was not really anything withheld from me that they were privy to necessarily, and there was not anything that I knew that they didn't know. Christine?
Yeah, John, I have a question for you regarding personal versus national interest. If it wasn't really to the national interest, was it then to the personal interest? I understand there's probably 25% of congressmen that have personal interest in economics of war. So who was really pushing this war, and do you think that there was another level in pushing the war?
Well, in my book I talk about what I believe, and I give what I think is the intelligence that informed me of why we actually went to war. There are always the possibility that individuals may be motivated by personal gain as the result of their financial ties to industry. Mm-hmm. Some refer to as the defense industrial complex. The thing is that on an annual basis, every member of the House is required according to the rules of the House, to disclose their net worth in every way, I should say. And we had to disclose the ownership that we had in businesses, stock ownership, who had given us a gift of any amount, who had given our family members, direct family members, gifts, what in some cases their disclosure of their financial assets, so that these type of questions can be known, and this information is actually available to the public.
So, but the question comes back. Do you think that there was?
I don't believe there was. I don't believe that. I don't believe there was.
Personal motivation? Personal
motive on the part of members of Congress as a result of financial gain. But let me say this: given the nature of the intelligence and the weak case, and the fact, as I pointed out in the book, that there was significant public support for America to go to war and remove Saddam Hussein militarily, there were a lot of my colleagues that believed they had to vote for the Iraq War resolution, if for no other reason than the fact that a large majority of their constituents who were going to go to the polls less than a month later wanted them to vote for the war.